All right, well, let's now kindly transition to our next question. Sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Ryan in Regina, or is it Regina?
It's Regina.
Regina.
It rhymes with... It rhymes with pussy.
Saskatchewan.
Nothing rhymes with Saskatchewan.
Jim and Brian. I can't read this. It happened again. Where I because of what caused me to laugh, the question becomes completely inappropriate.
Wait a minute. No, ask this inappropriate question. We're just going to, because we don't preview these folks, so sometimes we may have said something that inadvertently would cast a different tone to the proceedings. But no, ask this question, and we'll approach this in a dignified and professional manner.
That's right. That previous intro was for the deep cut, but this question, Jim, was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Ryan in Regina, Saskatchewan. Mick Foley came out and said that WWE needs a woman's-only brand and should do so before AEW does. Jim has come out and said that women are good for wrestling, but not for an entire show. I think a woman's-only show results in top things. I guess he meant two things. In two things. One, that if ratings drop, okay, this is starting to go off the rails. If ratings drop, there will be backlash about wrestling fans being sexist and biased towards women. And two, that by launching this woman's-only brand, it would be seen as more of a politically correct movement and not a talent-based move. I have countered that a tag team-only brand would benefit. All right, I'm done with the question from Ryan. Jim, have you seen this Mick Foley?
You need to play the whole intro there, or elsewise they won't understand why I'm laughing as soon as the question from Regina that rhymes with whatever is about the all-women's. Yeah, that was great.
I have the tweet here just to clarify whatever he was trying to say there. I don't know if there's much of a language barrier between Saskatchewan and the Northeast. I don't know what the problem is, but Mick Foley tweeted out on April 30th, 12:56 p.m., "Dear Vince, an all-woman's brand needs to happen in WWE unless you want AEW to beat you to the punch.
Yes!
Sincerely, Mick." And then
I think that Vince is holding the door open waiting for AEW to beat him to that punch. Here, you go first. There wouldn't be any backlash if the show didn't work. Otherwise, it'd be taken off the air because nobody was watching it. So then people would say, well, all the fans are sexist. No, they're not watching the fucking shows they're producing right now. So if you take all the male stars off of it and just put the female stars on it, you think more people are going to watch it then? I love Mick. He's way too nice a human being. And no, I think the LPWA proved back in 1990 that nobody wants to see an all-female wrestling program, except the female wrestlers. But no, Jesus Christ, nobody's watching the shows now. So take half the cast off and see what happens. Does that make any sense? And seriously, I know, and in a perfect world, it rains lemonade, and there are no Republicans, and everybody likes women's wrestling just like men's wrestling. But realistically, and in the actual world we live in, no. We've got down to a base of viewers where the men like the women's wrestling as much as the men's wrestling, which is part of the problem. I could understand if it was all young girls that wanted to grow up and be like their favorite superhero girl wrestlers, but it's a bunch of fucking guys as older as these fucking female wrestlers are, with their favorite girl wrestler's profile picture on Twitter, and the goddamn somehow figured into their handle or their name. And I mean, the overall, again, pussification of pro wrestling has led to guys being bigger fans of girl wrestling than they are of guy wrestling, which then somebody's going to say, but Jim, doesn't that contradict your point about why wouldn't they just then have a girl show? And the answer is because I didn't say there was a lot of these people. I just said some of them, that's what they're doing. And I apologize that pro wrestling is a business that exists solely as testosterone-driven, badass men punching each other in the face and committing heinous acts of physical violence. That's what it is, and that's what draws. And that's what it's always been. That's what's always going to draw. That's why Stone Cold Steve Austin drew more than anybody else, and that's why today's programs draw less than everybody else. Prove me wrong.
That's why I'd be curious about how it would do. If they had a 2-hour show once a week that was nothing but the women's roster, I would really love to see how that would do, one way or the other. If it does good, that tells you something. If it doesn't do good, that tells you something. If the other show doesn't change at all, that tells you something. I mean, I would actually like to see it as an experiment. I'd like to see them do that.
I think the other show wouldn't change at all, and that show would have almost as many people watching it as the other show, because it'd be the same people, just not quite as many of them. But I would love to see AEW start that all women's program first, because my God, talk about a comedian's dream when a president gets elected that's a bumblefuck. Yeah, we would have to watch that every week and pray that it would be live. But I like Mick. I've said this many times before, he's too nice and polite a human being for the wrestling business.
Plus, it's one thing to make the point on Twitter and just say, I think WWE should do this before AEW does. The whole pretending like Vince is, on Twitter, like, oh, Mick tweeted at me. Let me see what this is. I should start a women's division before AEW.
Vince has got to have somebody that does his tweeting for him, right? And I'm not saying this. Well, possibly. And I'm not even saying that like I'm making fun of Vince for being old. I do not know. If you held a gun to me, put a smartphone in my hand and said tweet, I'll just shoot, save us both some time. We'll get to the fucking meat of the matter. I'm not saying that Vince McMahon, who is this billionaire that runs this major company, has not figured out how in the last, 20 years that I haven't been around him that much, how to use a smartphone to tweet. I'm just saying that I can't see the man that I knew taking time to fucking pick up the phone and tweet. I can see him picking up the phone, calling the office 17 times a day to ask whatever question. But I can't see Vince McMahon say, I need to get this thought out to the public. So I'm pretty sure he's like a lot of the other guys. There's some of the older guys that actually tweet. Some people retweet them and say, look, oh, so-and-so thinks the same way I do. And they don't know they've got some fucking jack-off that tweets for them because they don't know how to do it. And that's a lot more of the older guys than one might think.